Alright, so we're going to talk about the 5 features of capitalism. In the last video, we talked about the differences between capitalism and communism. Now we're going to talk about things that are specific to capitalism. Like I said, capitalism is the most successful economic system in history. All the other ones have kind of failed in one way or another. Capitalism is the only one that has not failed. Never failed, always produces a surplus, always leads to a higher standard of living. Now, first feature, remember when I talked about capitalism, government out of everything. In a capitalist society, government doesn't mess with you at all. You do whatever you want. So, just keep that in mind as we go through this, that the government stays out of things. Government stays out of things in a capitalism. So, capitalism, the first feature, in a capitalist society, individuals have the right to own property. Private property is defined as anything owned by an individual or a business. So for instance, if me and my brother went into business together into real estate and bought a house together, that house, even though it's owned by both of us, is private property. Okay? So partnerships, corporations can own private property. Houses, cars are great examples. Public property, on the other hand, is anything owned by the government. This is open to everybody. So like a library, courthouse, jail's not really open to everybody, but it's owned by the government. So it's public property. Number 2, economic freedom. Workers have the right to choose what kind of work they'll do and who they're going to work for. When I was discussing capitalism in the previous, or communism in the previous video, I was talking about how the government decides what you do, what your job is. In capitalism, it's completely up to you. Completely up to you. This is both good and bad because then, one, you got to figure out what you want to do with your life, man, and that's a big decision. That's hard. It's hard to figure out. On the other hand, if you don't like doing something, you can always do something else. So economic freedom is the second feature of capitalism. Businesses also have the right to choose whatever products they want to produce and sell. If a business doesn't want to use, for instance, some food companies don't want to use GMOs, genetically modified organisms, they don't have to, and then they can print it on their product that they're GMO free. And part of economic freedom is that everybody has the same legal status, okay? Nobody gets privileged or discriminated against. So there's no laws against certain people. All the laws affect everyone equally. All laws affect everyone equally. The third feature of capitalism is voluntary exchange. This means that anytime two people exchange something, it's done of their own free will. And anytime that you have an exchange, both parties are better off for it. Okay? So, for instance, if I go to the gas station and I fill up my tank, send I spend $50 on gas. All right. To me, that gas, because I need it to run my car, that gas is worth more than $50 to me. So I got a deal. Okay? So I'm happy. I paid $50 for my gas. I have my gas. If gas wasn't worth $50 to me, then I wouldn't buy it. Okay? Just wouldn't buy it. That wouldn't make sense. To the gas company, my $50 is worth more to them than their gas. Otherwise, they wouldn't sell me the gas. Okay? And so they're getting $50. They're getting better. You know, they're making out on the deal. I'm getting gas, which I need. I'm making out on the deal. So both parties are better off. Both parties are better off whenever you make a trade. If you ever make a trade where one party isn't better off in the end, then either they're silly and they made a horrible decision, or they were forced or coerced into making a poor deal. The fourth feature of capitalism is competition is good. Competition brings the best out of people, okay? You have the best athletes in the world because they compete against the other best athletes in the world, okay? Athletes get better because they try to compete against one another. Same thing when business, okay? When workers compete against each other, they end up getting higher wages, okay? Competition leads to higher wages because businesses will compete to get the best workers, so they'll offer people more and more money. They'll offer the best workers more money. Consumers, because of competition, get better prices, they get more selection, they get improved quality, and they get new products. All these things are directly related to competition. I can't express how much competition does for society. It does just wonders for the economy and for our standard of living. The fifth feature of capitalism is economic incentives. An incentive is something that encourages a person or motivates them. For instance, if a teacher ever gave you a gold star for doing a good job, that's an incentive. So, what acts as an incentive in our society? Money. Money is the incentive. Money is the incentive in a capitalist society. Everybody's working to get money. Now that's the opposite of communism, where the incentive in communism is the good of society. Everybody just works to improve society. Now, we're going to throw the invisible hand principle in here. This is something Adam Smith wrote about in 1776. Adam Smith wrote that there is an invisible hand to the market, that if you leave the market alone, it'll regulate itself without the government intervening. The government doesn't need to intervene because the market will decide what products to produce, what products to improve, what goods to produce, what goods to improve, who to sell it to. All those things are it just happens in a capitalist system. That's what the invisible hand principle discusses. It's a little more complicated than that, but invisible hand, markets regulate themselves. Just remember that. Now, remember what I said about the role of government in capitalism? Government has a very small role. So, what are they supposed to do in a capitalist system? One, they protect property rights and contract rights. If we enter into a contract for me to sell you so much lumber, then I have to sell you that much lumber because we have a contract. Property rights can't steal stuff. Non-excludable public goods. Government gives you non-excludable public goods. These are goods and services that everybody has to have. It's either everybody gets them or nobody gets them. And so everybody has to pay for them. So for instance, like national defense. You can't have national defense for everybody except like one guy in your neighborhood. You get national defense for everybody. You can't opt out of national defense. And so non-excludable goods are things that everybody gets. The government provides those. Other things, traffic lights, police, laws, those are non-excludable too. Protect the well-being of customers. It make sure people don't get scammed or ripped off. Obviously they can't protect everybody, but they don't let identity theft go on, stuff like that. They also make sure producers provide consumers with information about the products. That's why we have like nutritional labels on food, is because the government says, hey, people need to know what you're selling them. So what are the 4 goals of the government to promote a strong economy? Government's going to focus on these 4 things. 1, high employment, not high unemployment, low unemployment, high employment. That means they're going to want most people to have jobs. Anybody who wants a job, in the U.S., they're going to try to get them a job. They're going to want that for them. Economic growth. This means making more money. Essentially, making more money. It's not. Economic growth isn't strictly related to making more money. It's related to making more products efficiently. But economic growth, you can think of it as making more money. Stability and security. This means that you have like a stable banking system, secure system, where people aren't going to lose their money overnight. And then they want to promote innovation and invention. So they want to fund research, establish their own research institutions, and then grant patents and copyrights. Patents and copyrights are intellectual trademarks. And so if I invent something, I can patent it. And then nobody else can use that design. The negative side effects of government regulation are rules are really costly to implement. Regulation generally hinder competition, and competition is really good. So, bad thing about regulating companies is that it hurts competition. Sometimes it's necessary, though. Increases government spending. Anytime we increase government spending, we have to increase taxes, which mean we have less money. So that sucks. The free rider problem is when people who receive the benefits of a good or service, but they don't pay for them. And so like if somebody comes over and gets free healthcare, well, if you're getting free healthcare but you're not paying taxes, then you're getting something without paying for it. Externalities are just a fancy word for side effects of an action, okay? So there are positive and negative externalities for every situation, every action you do. So an example of a negative externality, secondhand smoke, or the property value decreases for your house because your neighbor's yard is kept really poorly, like their house is just falling apart, and so the value of your house goes down too. That's negative externality. A positive externality, like flu vaccine, people stop getting the flu. Education, people get smarter. This is just an illustration of the circular flow of economic activity in the economy. So you have businesses giving income, goods, and services to households. Households give businesses their labor. Government provides services to businesses. Businesses give taxes and goods and services to the government. Government gives services and income to households. Households and individuals give taxes and labor to the government. I think that's where we're going to end up for chapter 2 and 3.